number activity quiz is. This is like number 6. How many tests did you? I just write like that like.
Oh, this will be for quiz 6 or week 6. Yeah. Well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You will have a quiz on Tuesday, I believe. Nope. You do math now. I want to know what you know, not your neighbor. They are all charged. There's always more to do on it. And then you must have gotten really bored and did a bunch of extra stuff one day. No. You get a whole new set of stuff in high school. Okay. Each year, different stuff unlocks, too. Yeah, for your advisory next block, everyone gets out early, but you got to do, this group is mostly sophomore and junior. You're mostly, the whole lot of you spending that time on SD My Life, especially sophomore year, SD My Life, it ain't fun. It's a program that's paid for by the state and they want us to do. Some of it can be useful. Like there's career interest inventory things that maybe it'll give you, hey, this is a career you haven't thought of before. Maybe look into it. You also do academic plans, which is, this is what I want to get done, the kind of classes I want to take in the next few years. It's generally just, think of it more like a high school counselor's companion app. That's what it is. Because if you go in to talk to the counselors about colleges or what classes you're taking or any of that kind of stuff, the first thing they're going to do is pull that up. Okay? So it's one of those things that might be kind of annoying, but there's some use to it, so just do it, right? I will also say, I don't know if it's still on there because they switched it from, it used to be entirely SD My Life, now it's called like Zello or something. They used to have a really solid ACT test prep on there, like free, so it ain't all bad. It's got some stuff in there that's useful. Is anyone still going? No? All right, get your minute. Tomorrow will not be a donut day because donuts are cheaper on Fridays. That's why I do that. No donut tomorrow. Saturday. Yeah. Safeway does $5 dozen donuts on Fridays. $7 a box. So if I sell them out, it means Game Club makes $20 every Friday. Woo! So no, and it's literally the only way that Game Club gets money too. So we don't do any fundraising or anything like that. It is literally just kids who are impulsive and buy Pop-Tarts for me. So all right. Step 1. Divide everything by a. Get x squared minus 40 over 16 is going to reduce to 5 halves. And most of you were okay with, let's just move this over now. Combine steps 1 and 2. So you divide everything by a and variables on one side, constants on the other. Step 2, add b over 2 squared to both sides. Currently, what is b? So if you do 5 halves over 2, remember that dividing by fractions is as easy as pi. Flip the second multiply, right? Okay, so it's easier to maybe just think instead of b over 2, double the denominator. So 5/4, and then I'll square it, getting 25/16. And then I can write this as a perfect square binomial, or a binomial squared. It's always going to be the square root of c and half of b. Every time. That's what makes it perfect. Then I got a 38 over 16. Now, what? I can reduce it. I'm not going to. For a specific reason. Because when I do square roots now, since 16 happens to be a perfect square, I'm going to do that. If you did reduce it, then you would have, what's that, 19 over 8, right? So if I tried to take the square root of 19 over 8, that's the square root of 19 over the square root of 8, which is the square root of 19 over 2 root of 2, but then you have to rationalize it to say square root of 38 over 2 times 2 is 4. So you get there anyway. But if you recognize that reducing it will actually create more work when I do the square root, don't reduce it. Okay, cheat mode. So, I get all the way there and then I'll add my 5/4. So x is 5/4 plus or minus square root of 38 over 4. Did you, purple, did you divide everything by 16 and do it correctly? Blue, you added the correct b over 2 squared term to both sides. If you goof that up, the next stage is going to be wrong. But are you still following the process? Did you then write it as a binomial squared, with that binomial being half of b? Even if your b was incorrect, was it half of that b? Did you simplify the radical correctly? Did you get to the end of the rainbow? So if you screwed up way back here, that's going to change everything. Then we need to look at your process. So, well, it's 19/8, but then you have to keep going. Right here, you would have had 19/8. But then when you did the square root of it, all that junk that I just wrote over here, you'd have to do that in order to simplify the radical to this. It would still get there. You can't just leave it as square root of 19/8, because now you have a radical on denominator. So if you just left it as 5/4 plus or minus the square root of 19/8, one off for not simplifying your radical. Okay? And again, this isn't stuff that I'm going to be up here like, you must do it this way because it's, no, y'all are going to be in some sort of math class where you have to type something online. You will be there. Okay, if you want an associate's in culinary arts, you have to take college algebra. And you're probably going to have to type stuff in online. You want an associate's degree in early childhood care, a certified babysitter, you got to take college algebra. So you're probably going to have to do this online. And I want you to get used to that correct form so that when you run across it with the crotchety old professor who's just doing that on the side and just clicking boxes online, not actually teaching, you're not going to get it wrong. Okay? I hate to say it like that, but that's actually what a lot of undergrad classes are. At least the generals. Okay? So, we got questions about scoring. I did this. Oops, things happened. Anyone? Okay. Then go away. Safe. Not you. You. From the homework, we got anything? Any there? Hi.
59.
Okay. 59. Not you. You. Come on, Frank. 59. Ah, fractions. Okay. Now, remember how I say this thing will become a perfect square binomial? Because this number will always be half of b, but it'll be the square root of c. So what's the square root of 1/4? Square root, not squared. 1/2, right? Square root of 1 over square root of 4. So this number has to be 1/2 because it's always going to be the square root of this and half of this. So if I now know that this number is half of this, there you go. K is 1. Now, here's a fun part though. It could be +1 or -1. Because 1/2 squared is 1/4. -1/2 squared is also 1/4. And it doesn't give me a sign here other than plus k. So k could be technically plus or minus 1. Could be either one. Like, I threw that one in there to see if you're paying attention to that idea that when I write my binomial squared, it's always x plus b over 2 squared equals a number. But this is also the square root of c. Every time. That's what makes it a perfect square trinomial. Anything? We're reverse engineering the problem. Instead of trying to find c, we're starting with c and going backwards. So just like, so you undo the steps that make c. So instead of b over 2 squared, I will square root. And instead of dividing by 2, I will times 2. Okay? So maybe think of it that way. If c is always b over 2 squared, and I know that this is 1/4, right? Just straight up setting up as an equation. Square root both sides times 2. So sneaky, sneaky. Besides 59. Okay. In geometry, a lot of the stuff that you were supposed to do, the standards aren't will solve for this. The standards aren't will determine similarity. The standards all say the words will prove. Students will prove this theorem. Students will prove this relationship. One of the standards from back in Algebra 1 that we're about to do again here is students will prove or construct the quadratic formula by completing the square on the general form. So you've seen this before. It probably broke your brain because at the time, the whole lot of you were, what, freshmen, 8th grade? Okay. So we're going to make the quadratic formula. You all know what the quadratic formula looks like. Okay. It's right there above Callister's head. Okay. Now, most of the time what happens is kids will learn how to complete the square, spend a couple days on it, go and do quadratic formula. After that, teacher says, when you get to these problems, I don't care how you do it. And kids will choose quadratic formula because kids just like formula plug and chug. Okay. I'm having this discussion right now with my pre-calc because we're hitting polynomials so hard where we keep having radical answers, where we keep having imaginary answers. And it turns out, Sullivan's not crazy, it's actually faster and easier to do complete the square. Because once you understand it, it's only like 2 or 3 steps that you can do by mental math. We're not there yet, okay? We're not at that point yet. But until we reach that point, we're going to want the formula to fall back on. Y'all know the general form, right? With A, B, and C. Start with that. So we're going to complete the square on that. There's no numbers up there. Just a bunch of letters. But we're still going to complete the square on it. Okay. Step 1. Divide everything by A. Getting x squared plus b over ax plus c over a is 0. Step 2, variables on one side, constants on the other. Now it sounds dumb when they're all variables, but you got to remember that a, b, and c are numbers. They're just holding the place of the numbers. So I'm still going to move this number over to the other side. You following so far? Divide by A, move the thing over. Same as we were doing the last 2 days. Complete the square. This is the part where kids have trouble. What is the B term right now? No. B over A. Right? What's in the B spot? B over A. So when I add B over 2 squared to both sides, I'm adding this to both sides. And that looks funky. That's why I said don't worry about compound fractions. Instead, just double the denominator. Dividing by fractions as easy as pi. So I get b over 2a, and I'll square it. Okay? So when I complete the square, I'm going to add b squared over, square every part, 4a squared. That's literally the hardest part in here, is just making sure that you can find that number. Because 2 squared is 4. You have to square the b, square the 4, or square the b, square the 2, square the a. Now, factor the perfect square trinomial. it's always written as x plus b over 2, half of this term. So 2a. It's right there. Right? Half of b. Just double the denominator. Those don't have common denominators. I can't add them together right now. So what is orange missing to get common denominators? A 4 and an a. Right? Because 4a times a is 4a squared. So if I take this times 4a and take this times 4a, they both now have 4a squared on a denominator. I now have a b squared and a negative 4ac. And you start seeing it take shape. Like, 4ac, that looks familiar. It's like when you get lost. Like, you're driving around in a part of Rapid you've never been, and you're like, oh, hell, where am I? And then, oh, I know that place. Taco John's. I know where I'm at. I see 4ac. I'm like, hey, quadratic formula. I know that. You're almost there. Square root. If I square root this, I just get x plus b over 2a. If I square root this whole honkin' thing, remember, square root of a fraction is a fraction of square roots. This is a difference. I can't do anything with this because it's not a product. So I'll just leave that as the square root of b squared minus 4ac. But I can do the square root of that. What's the square root of 4? Square root of a squared. A. And then subtract over. And when I subtract that b over 2a, I notice that they're both over 2a, so I will just write the whole honkin' thing over 2a. I won't write my answers like that, but for a formula, you bet I will. And we are at the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula doesn't just happen. Every formula you will ever see in math doesn't just happen. It's not like some dead math dude just pulled this out of his orifice, chucked it at the wall, and said, yeah, that'll work. There's math behind it. The quadratic formula comes from completing the square. The part that most kids prefer was created by using the part they don't. But once I have that formula, game on. Okay? The quadratic formula will solve any quadratic. Doesn't matter what kind. It can be something nice and easy factorable. It can be something that has ugly fraction answer. It can be something that has ugly radical answer. Or, as of tomorrow, it can be something that has imaginary answers. This is the nuclear option. Okay? You're playing a game. You're, what's the Totally Accurate Battlegrounds? That's the one that they keep playing in Discord. Okay? Totally Accurate Battlegrounds. Right? Tab G? They keep playing that. It's like little stick figures, like polygons, doing a Fortnite impression, right? So, how easy is it if you're running around a map and you see someone just standing there? They have obviously just walked away from their game to go get their pizza rolls. Yeah! I win. That's x squared equals 4. I could just do square roots. Plus or minus 2, I win. Done. What if it's something bigger and uglier? What if it's one of those quadratics that I threw up there yesterday with a bunch of prime numbers on it? Okay, now that's an entire room full of people. That's a big ugly mess where you have to time it just right. If you have any option, you're up against anything. This is screw it. Just blow up the room. This will solve any quadratic. Doesn't matter what kind. This is your nuclear option. It will always work. Assuming you can do order of operations. So, let's go all the way back to the first week of school. Order of operations. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. With what catch?
The multiplication and division is addition and subtraction.
Okay, since this is the nuclear option that will always work, that you can solve any quadratic with, moving forward for the next 3 months, we should probably know this. Okay, the order of operations. But it's important to note stuff like this. What's the answer? Once again, Caden's up here mansplaining to people. Where's? There we go. Oh yeah, that's right, because Andrew has to bring us food now. Andrew tried teaching again, and it didn't work out well. So, okay, we call this Facebook math because people will put this on some online forum, and you will see middle-aged, like Chads and Beckys around the world argue about this and just get mean, right? Oh, sorry, not that Chad. Okay. You will get people just arguing mean about this because they'll do exactly what Caden just did, and they'll say, right? Yeah. But what did I just include on there? Left to right. Right. No, what did I just put there? And a fraction bar implies parentheses. Okay. There is no such thing as division. This is 9 times 1/3 times 6. So the inverse is also true. If I see a fraction bar, that means parentheses exist. So when I have x is negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, when I see the quadratic formula, that means what exists there but isn't shown? Parentheses. That means you don't divide until the end of the problem. Do not divide until the very, very end of the problem. And I will see kids all the time try to take this divided by this and then go on. Okay? 9 times 1/3 is 3. 3 times 6 is 18. Okay? Not 1/2. So, what are the solutions with the quadratic formula? I'm not going to keep writing the quadratic formula. I assume that you either know what it is, or you can look at your paper, or you can look above Calster's head. So, before I do the quadratic formula, I need to make sure that I actually have it in standard form. Rewrite it. 2x squared minus x minus 4 is 0. Identify what is a, b, and c. A is 2, b is negative 1, c is negative 4. When you write your quadratic formula, do so with a bunch of parentheses. Remember, all the way back to the beginning of school, I said parentheses are going to keep you from screwing up negatives and exponents. So please use parentheses to keep yourself from screwing up negatives and exponents. Case in point, if I'm on a calculator and I say negative 3 squared, why does it tell me negative 9?
There's no parentheses.
Okay, more.
Around the negative 3.
What does this say?
It's leaving the negative sign out and it's square root is.
Okay. How about an example of nonverbal communication? Negative 3 squared versus negative 3 squared. Where I put the emphasis on the right syllable changes the meaning, right? If I do that versus I do this, okay, one of them says negative 1 times 3 squared because exponents come before multiplication. This has parentheses, and since parentheses come before exponents, it's a negative 1 times a 3 and then squared. That's why it's important to use parentheses. If you don't use parentheses, you will screw up the little stuff in these problems. So, jam them in there. B, B, A, C. Along the way, I can do this part. I can do this part. Negative 4 by 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 by negative 4 is positive 32. 1 plus 32 is 33. And 2 by 2, 4. Okay. Now, this is the correct answer. The square root of 33 is even as simple as it gets. I'm going to tell you that I have seen over and over and over, a kid will do Algebra 2, they'll go and do dual credit college algebra, they'll walk in here during Spartan time just mad and they'll, why is that wrong? I've done this like 5 times. I know I'm right. Why does it say that it's wrong? And then I make them even more mad by saying, separate your rational friends from your irrational friends. A compound number is a rational portion and an irrational portion. You all know your friend group. Separate your rational friends from your irrational friends. You all know the friends who will say something like, hey dude, come over to my house and we'll just play Halo all weekend. Versus that friend who's like, dude, have you ever gone cow tipping and paintballing at the same time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the friend that's going to land you in jail.
Not fair. That's the one you have the most fun.
See, the trick is you like start tipping them you push off and then someone shoots them and then they'll just go, "Arr!" and they'll fall over because it wakes them up. Don't do that. No. So, you get them kind of tipping and then you startle them so they'll like kick their legs and they...
That's evil.
So, separate your rational friends from your irrational friends, please. I want to point out something important about this one, because sometimes this is going to happen. I set up x is negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in your numbers. What is b? What is a?
1.
What is c? What is 4 by 1 by 9? 4 by 1 by 9. So I'll get negative 6 plus minus the square root of 36 minus 36. So those are my 4 areas. 36 minus 36 is, and the square root of 0 is 0. Right? What times itself makes 0? So if I end up with x is negative 6 plus or minus 0 over 2, what's my answer? Just negative 3, and that's it. How did I end up with 2 answers on one of them, but 1 answer on the other?
Reduction. What'd you say?
I don't know, he's just saying gibberish today. We just ignore him.
That's some science.
Is the perfect square?
Reduction is not a...
Say that louder.
The perfect squares cancel out and make 0.
Perfect squares. If I have x plus 3 times x plus 3, I didn't have only one answer. I had the same answer twice. Right? X equals negative 3, x equals negative 3. So, let's start with... Wait, I got to make sure I'm not doing the right... Okay. I don't like those because A is 1. I want to get a little more creative than that. What if it doesn't look like standard form to begin with? Or what if A is a prime number? Do those two. Just quadratic formula.
Okay, wait. So
Okay, on 42, you got a little bit uglier numbers. On 21, you're going to have to turn it into standard form. Wait a second, that's minus 5x. 5 halves squared, 25 fourths. Nine fourths, 3 halves, plus or minus 3 halves, 5 halves, plus or minus 3 halves. So 8 halves is 4, 5 fourths. Oh, no, that's 5 halves. No, that was right. 5 halves minus 3 halves and 1. Yeah. 5, 12, negative 1/7. Half that, negative 1/14. 1/196. Ew. 1/7, 1/14. 1/196. 12 over 7. 7 is 84. My 2 is 168. Is 320, 336, 337. I have been really off today, so you got to check me on that last one.
Sorry, I felt like doing the other I'm gonna do them both, but I just wanted to do it quickly.
Plus 4AC. 48 by 7. 280. And 56 is 336 plus 1. Dude, I did it right! No, you have no idea how far off I've been today. It's been bad. I got like half the lesson done this morning. What is this and why are you turning red?
She's doing her friend's college now. She's in university. That's what she's doing. And she's doing primitive, like derivatives. And with, I don't get it. I don't know if she succeeded to do the primitive of this one.
Said, I remember, like I fuzzy remember chain rule and the definitive derivative, but beyond that, yo, I haven't done differential equations since you've been alive. Like I started college in Calc 3 and then DiffyQ. I haven't done derivative equations or integrals since 2004. But that right there, that also shows you if you're not going specifically into a STEM field where you're going to use this stuff, it's so useless. All right. Here we go. Come on now. Stage 1, x squared minus 5x plus 4 is 0. Stage 1, distribute everything to one side so you know what A, B, and C are. B is a negative 5. A is a 1. And be careful. I'll see a lot of kids who will just leave that negative 4 on the other side and write negative 4 as their C.
You gotta add it over.
Okay. I see it a lot. Just be careful. So this section, I have x is 5 plus or minus 25 minus 16 is 9. And so I get x is 5 plus or minus 3 over 2. Because 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay? Round 2, negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. B is negative 1, a is 7, c is negative 12. Do them in sections, 1 plus or minus. Curious. How do you multiply that?
Multiply what?
Like, which numbers do you multiply together first? Do you say 28 times negative 12? Do you say 4 times negative 84? Or do you say negative 48 times 7?
Negative 48 times 7.
Like, or just screw it, calculator. Okay. I'm just curious, like, what people think of as compatible numbers. Multiplication is commutative. So, no. Like, literally, that's one of the rules that govern multiplication. So, either way, I'm going to have the square root of 1 plus 336 over 14. 1 plus 336 is 337. Square root of 337, if I remember right, can't be reduced. But don't leave it like that. Separate your rational friends from your irrational friends. Okay? I don't want to go to jail this weekend.
That makes you
Stay away from Dawson.
Dawson's a good boy. Yep.
I'll risk it because I want to have fun this weekend. Dude, Dawson, let's go. Okay? Like, that's the difference between rational and irrational is 2 separate parts to your answer. Okay. Applying the quadratic formula is something as simple as blah, 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 blah. Solve the equation that's in the problem. But then you have to interpret it in the context of the problem. So, starting with, this is how old this book is. We're going to sell CDs as a fundraiser. Okay. All right. Profit, P, depends on the amount X that your school's jazz band. Wait, don't we have a jazz band? Yeah. I know we got like wind ensemble, and do we have jazz band? Oh, cool. Here's an equation. What is the least amount in dollars you can charge for a CD to make a profit of $200? Where should I put that 200? Callister?
In for E. Good job, Callister. In for B.
I was meaning like the X.
P.
In for P. That's what. Brownie boy. That's brownie boy.
So, plug 200 in for P, but then what do you still have to do? If I have 200 here, okay, I still need to put everything on one side. Now, me personally, I'm actually going to move them all over to this side. Just so I have a positive 1 as my A instead of a negative 1. I moved everything to the left side. I added x squared, and I subtracted 48x, and I added 300.
Close.
I didn't want to deal with the negative out front. Then, x is negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac square root all over 2a. And we shall plug e in there, negative 48, 1, and 5 hondo. Getting 48 plus or minus 1600, 326, 40, 22, 40, 30, 2304. Minus 2000. Dude.
Simple, guys. Simple math, guys.
I distribute. I FOIL.
40 times 40. C times 8.
We tried showing you this in Algebra 1 as a mental math trick.
Easy peasy.
And then most kids were just like, screw it, I'm just going to FOIL. Or screw it, I'm just going to use a calculator.
Yeah, that's what they
But anyway, over 2. 2304 minus 2000 is 304. 304 is 4 by 76. Oh no, 16 goes in there.
16 and 18.
Okay.
Good job. Good job.
So 4 root of 19. Okay. I want to be careful here because I see way too many kids try to do freshman math, and they'll do something like this. And they'll just say that's their answer. It's all over 2. So I need to write all of it over 2. I need to separate that and say that's 48 over 2 plus or minus 4 root of 19 over 2. Then simplify. So 24 plus or minus 2 root of 19. Yay, I've got an answer. I guarantee if your school fundraiser is selling something for 24 plus 2 root of $19, no one's buying it because they don't even know what they're paying. Remember when I said we want that because that's our actual answer, but when we're talking about in context of real world problems, we will also put our decimal approximation next to them. So this is like, what, 4.3-ish? By 8 is 8.6, so 24, 8, 3260, and 1580-ish. I don't know. I'm winging it. 3271, and what about minus? 15 something?
15.28.
Okay. So, I get here. I plugged the 200 in for P, made the quadratic, solved by quadratic formula. I got the real answer, the pretty answer, but then I had to get a decimal answer that was close enough so I could actually have people, buy this. Because again, if I say, hey, I'm gonna be doing like super donut thing, would y'all be cool with, instead of donuts, we had like Perkins Catering on Fridays instead? But I need everyone to pay 24 minus 2 root of $19.
Plus or minus. I don't know, but we can definitely
Like,
do that.
no one would want, like, huh? They're over here like, dude, food. In fact, that's where Donut Fridays came from. Donut Fridays came from an Algebra 2 class and a word problem, and a student just asked, can we do that? Like, can we just have breakfast on Fridays? And so we have donuts. So, I didn't answer the question. What is the least amount in dollars that I can charge and still get a profit of $200? 1528, approximately. Okay. So they're all blah, 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 blah. Do quadratic formula like you just did, but answer the question. So, blah, 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 blah. Solve with quadratic formula. Answer the question.
We add at least 200. Minus 200. Plus 200.
Nope. I'm above you. Polynomial solve. Quadratic. Type in A, B, and C. Boom. Answer. Well, you still have to do the problem. That's how you check it.
Holy. What's the name? Oh my goodness. Ball.
See,
Yes.
when you couldn't answer the question before and you still don't have anything there, that's not good.
How's your quarter scale? He said good. I said how's your quarter that he tried to do that. How's your Robbie?
That's A, not B.
What is A?
You Robbie that's
A is a big house. Just wanted to help you before you got too far.
So you do one dozen. You do 1 dozen. I did. Whatever B is.
So would you get the mass on that?
Really, why didn't you tell me?
The mass.
I don't know.
He has them.
Finding C, so when you subtract it over, you just move it over.
No, you subtract it over, but if you owe me 250 and then you borrow another 200, you owe me 202.50.
Oh, did I do? If I get rid of my history, I think I did.
You did not have the negative there when you subtracted it over. That's it. It's a negative 202.5. This is why you should do math. It doesn't get better when you avoid it. All right, folks. Life hack. Everyone got the quadratic and got the formula set up, right? Before you go trying to solve anything, look at the context of the problem.
What's the highest price?
The highest price they can charge in dollars and make a profit of at least 200. Are you going to charge a simplified radical amount of money at your bakery? Not unless you got like a nerd coffee shop next to MIT. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. One of the top 5 for engineering and just everything smart people in the country. So, I'm going to head straight to my calculator. But I have to be able to type it in. This is where having a right view calculator is best. I'm going to start with alpha y equals, I'm going to bring up a fraction. I'm going to type it exactly the way it says right here. Negative parenthesis, negative 1100. I don't have a plus or minus button, so I'm just going to start with plus, go back and do it again. Square root of parenthesis, negative 1100 squared minus 4 times 1000 times 202.5 all over 2 by 1000. Would you agree that is what we had written on the board?
Pretty much. Just about.
So I can charge about 87 cents a bagel. Check this out.
You can change the minus.
Hit enter, and it just retypes the whole thing for you.
Oh.
It's like the perfect pump, right? When you're like, ting, $48 and no cents. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a bagel for that much in about 20 years. Okay. What did it ask? What was the least amount or the most amount? What?
You had 80 cents. I had 200 of this.
What's the highest price in bagel you can charge?
The highest price. So I would say charge about 87 cents a bagel. Okay. Why is yours what? Ooh, doggy. You forgot square root there, bud.
Oh, and the second one?
Yeah. So
Oh, I deleted on accident.
that's okay. Head all the way back,
So right before that parenthesis mark.
and right before this, a second, insert a square root. Oh. All right. Unfortunately, that's not going to work for
Can we just
us.
delete all these and go back up to this one? Because I had it up there.
Oh, there you go. That would work. I'll show you a little trick, though. This is, you learned it back in Algebra 1. We're going to hit it again in Chapter 6. A square root of something is that something to the 1/2 power.
All right.
Okay. There's not much more to say about the quadratic formula other than it's a formula. Plug and chug. As long as you can do the arithmetic, you're good. There are some conceptual things about it. We already ran into something where I ended up with 2 solutions. Those 2 solutions were because my graph hit the x-axis in 2 spots. Go back to that other one where we had a x squared plus 6x plus 9. Remember how that was x plus 3, x plus 3, x was only negative 3? Okay, a couple slides ago. That only had one solution. How do I draw a parabola that only hits the x-axis one time? Okay. In this specific case, it looked like that, right? So, what happens is this number inside the radical determines a lot. If it's a positive number, then that means I'm going to have plus or minus this number. So I'm going to have two answers. But if that number ends up being a 0, then it was plus or minus 0. So it was just negative b over 2a. Wait a second. Negative b over 2a. Where is that from? The axis of symmetry that went through my vertex. Because the vertex itself is on the x-axis. What happens if it's a negative number? Y'all got a calculator? What happens if I end up with negative 3 plus or minus square root of negative 4 over 2? What happens?
Just becomes 2.
Try it. What if that happened? What if the number inside the radical was a negative number?
Error.
Yeah.
It says error. Non-real.
Oh, it doesn't just say error. It doesn't just say quit. It says non-real answers. What is the opposite of a real friend?
Fake friend.
An imaginary friend.
That sucks.
Stay tuned for tomorrow. Okay. If you have a negative number, you have no real solutions. That happens when the parabola never hits the x-axis. So at the top of the page, they even give this a special name. It's called the discriminant. It's called a discriminant because whatever happens in that radical will discriminate between real and non-real answers. It will help you to differentiate, will I have two solutions, will I have one solution, or will I have no real solutions? The other stuff doesn't matter. Just the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. That will tell me whether I have real solutions or not. I can use that to shortcut problems. Like, what is the number of real solutions to this? I just want to know, how many times does this hit the x-axis? So I'll say b squared minus 4ac. I don't have to do the entire formula. I'm just going to say b squared minus 4ac. What's b? A. C is 9 plus 40. Well, it's 49, so positive, 0, or negative. It's a positive number, so how many solutions will it have? Specifically, 2 real solutions. And that's important, because technically every quadratic has 2 solutions. It's just sometimes they're imaginary.
So
Okay. It's like saying Harrison does have 2 friends. They just might be imaginary. Okay. Imaginary friends are cool, dude. Let me introduce you to Bill sometime. Okay. So, for both of these, I would like you to do the discriminant. You don't have to completely solve it. Just the discriminant. And tell me, how many real solutions does it have? 2, 1, or none? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
You put just like 1,000 there, but I put negative 1,000, and I still ended up getting the same answer as for the first one.
Because I moved all my stuff over to the other side.
Yeah,
I had a positive 1,000 here, a negative 1,100, and a positive 2,025. It'll work out. Mine was literally just the negation of yours. If you do only the discriminant, only the thing inside the radical, it's going to tell you, well, when I do the square root of this thing, is it going to give me 1 number, 2 numbers, or no real numbers? In the case of 3, well, 3a says negative 47. If I try and take the square root of negative 47, I get imaginary numbers. We don't know those yet. So no real solutions. If you try to do b, well, you have 56. 56 is a real positive number, so I'm just going to roll with it. 2 real solutions. Okay, the last part is words. Blah, 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 blah. Do the discriminant and just tell me, will it happen? If it has a real solution, it's going to happen. If it doesn't have a real solution, then it won't happen. So, blah, 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 blah. Here's an equation. Will the ball reach a height of 115? So, b squared minus 4ac y'all, like, just like before, you're going to have to put the 115 here, right? When will it reach a height of 115? Replace h with 115. And then I'll subtract it over. When I do, I'm going to have b is 85, a is negative 16, and c is going to be whatever 1/12 minus 115 is. And I have no friggin' clue. But instead, I'm just going to dump that in my calculator. I don't care what the number is. If it's a negative number, this isn't going to happen. There's no real solutions. If it's 0, then it's 1 solution. It'll happen. If it's 2 solutions, okay, it'll happen. So, you tell me. Don't do it again.
Any of the following students to the
Okay.
office: Mason Johnson, Haley Artist,
So, what does it end up?
Arturo Lauer.
$120. Well, that's a negative number. Since that's a negative number, that means there's no real solutions. So that means it will never actually hit this height. You whack the ball. When will it get to 115? It won't. You suck. Try again. Okay? So, the word problems are just, hey, do the thing we were just doing. Like, not too much to them. Remember, you do have to go to Spartan time. Everyone, every class. I sent out on Remind what you're doing. If you try to skip out, they're just going to hunt you down and make you do it again later. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't get the SD My Life stuff done, you show up on a report they run. And then they'll force you to stay so you get it done. But it'll be on a day when everyone else gets out. So just go make sure that you have it all done.